Hi, this is Dr. Kimberly Leonard, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Steve Ventola. Dr. Steve Ventola was raised in West Orange, New Jersey. He attended Montclair University and graduated with a degree in health education, followed by graduate studies in nutrition. After teaching and coaching in the West Orange school system, he served as a community health educator, developing and presenting pioneering wellness education programs to all ages of the general public. Through his work in health education, Dr. Ventola was drawn to the healing arts and went on to attend Life University and continues to serve as a wellness chiropractor and health educator. In addition to chiropractor, Dr. Ventola is a certified heart math practitioner and certified stress trainer by the Holistic Stress Control Institute of Atlanta. Dr. Ventola has certifications as a certified traditional naturopath, bioenergetic synchronization technique chiropractor, and as a certified gluten free practitioner. He is trained extensively in assessing the body for lifestyle and nutrient needs, utilizing objective laboratory assessments. Along with his professional achievements, he considers his highest to be what he has learned from his past experience with inflammatory bowel disease and colon cancer. During his healing experience, he published a book entitled Healing Verses of the Psalms, which he continues to consider to this day. From all of his learning, he has realized how vital it is that we all address the stress in our lives. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Ventola.
Thank you, Ken. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so we met many years ago, like maybe 15 years ago, because we're
At
both
least.
into the natural healing and bioenergetic medicine. That's where we met because I was into the bioenergetic medicine, and that's only one of the very many things that you do. So nice to see you again
Yes,
after
absolutely.
so much
Yeah.
time, and you have developed so many different ways of helping and healing people. So, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about you, how you started out, and how you got to be doing what you're doing now?
Gotcha. Well, it goes back to when I was actually 12 years old, Kim, and I was playing sports. And I realized actually the first book I ever read was called Nutrition for Athletes. So I made a connection back then that, in order to play better, you had to eat better.
Mhm.
So that led me to take one step at a time. And also in my bio there, just, I remember the time when my mother had a gallbladder attack and I put my hands on her stomach there to help settle it down before our doctor at that time made home visits there. And something planted in me at that young age of 12 to want to be in the health field. So at first I wanted to be a gym teacher, and then step by step I started learning more about health, and I realized I wanted to be more like a health educator. So eventually I became a teacher in the West Orange school system and taught and coached and along those lines. And then I became the community health educator of West Orange, New Jersey, which I loved. I developed those wellness programs at the early 1980s, and I touched in with every population at that time. And then I did that for about a year, a couple of years there. And then I realized a friend of mine saying like he was interested in chiropractic. And he said, you want to take a trip down south and visit Sherman Chiropractic College and Life College at the time, Life Chiropractic College. And, we went down, he went to Sherman. I was enamored with life. So I became a chiropractor, and I love the idea of working with folks one to one. And while I was a health educator, I realized that, but I also love the idea of still working in terms of a group health setting. So that's led me to the career that I'm in now, where I'm working one to one with individuals, but as well as providing whole health education for groups of individuals. So that's my background.
Mhm. Wow. And tell people where you're located.
I'm located in Atlanta and Century Boulevard there, Century Center. And
Okay.
we've been there for a couple of years now, but I've been practicing here in Atlanta since 1985.
Okay, yeah. So anybody in Atlanta, Dr. Ventola is available to take care of you.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious, what sport were you in when you discovered that eating was important?
I was playing actually PAL football for our town. And in West Orange, we were champions every year. So I played seventh, eighth, and ninth. And then in high school, I played 10th, 11th, and then 12th. We didn't do as well in high school, but we were champions younger
Mhm.
there. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then when you started coaching, and were you in the high school or the middle
Actually,
school?
actually, in high school, I was coaching track and football and actually, I became the wrestling coach for the junior high school I was teaching at too.
Beautiful.
That was interesting.
So when you were talking to these students about nutrition, how did they receive that? And were you able to actually help them make those changes? Because I think about, those times in life, and, junk food is high on the list, pizza and chips and sodas and
Right. At the time, somebody should ask me that question. And actually, I was substitute teaching for a while too, with permanent positions. And invariably, if I had to teach biology or history or English, I always in some way provided a health lesson for the kids. And I was so excited about that there. So I talked about a variety of things, nutrition, you know, other factors too. But in some way, I was always geared to provide, even at that young age. And I think my enthusiasm lit the fire of the kids' enthusiasm, where as a substitute teacher, it's hard to maintain control, but
Mhm,
no one's, people were listening. So
mhm.
yeah,
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
So if there are parents out there with kids who just want to eat chicken nuggets, what would you, what would be your advice on helping them help
Okay.
their children?
Okay. For one, I'd advise them to get gluten-free chicken nuggets,
Mhm,
you know, so that'd be a first step. And then to add some kind of vegetable source, whether if the kids don't want to eat a vegetable, give them a supplement or some kind of something you can mix of a green type substance and food that's palatable to them,
mhm.
to add some alkalizing minerals to them to support that.
Great. So what is good nutrition? I mean, I hear so many things, gluten free or dairy free or, paleo or Atkins, or I mean, there is a diet for every person on the planet. Maybe there's
Uh-huh.
more diets than there are people. How
Uh-huh.
do we know what we're supposed to eat?
And that's a good question too. The first step is, the attitude. It's not so much what we eat, it's more how we eat. Like a big part of it, as a heart math practitioner, is getting into parasympathetic mode before you actually eat. So some of us may say a prayer before we eat or while we're eating, and to breathe in, out, slow, to activate your parasympathetic system, which allows for you to digest the food better there. So, that's number one is setting a stage in attitude in our heart first.
Mm.
And then when we eat, we're going to eat the food we like to eat at times, so to enjoy those foods, whether it's not the healthiest for you, but to find your balances with eating, vegetables. Some of us might eat meat there, making sure you have your good fats there. So, finding a balance. But the biggest thing I find is how we eat is more important than what we eat, but what we eat is important too.
So many people, um, make their dinner and then sit on the couch in front of the TV. So, when we're eating, are we supposed to be consciously sitting and eating? Is it, should we have our phone watching YouTube videos, or should we actually be
Yeah.
sitting, um, I don't know, meditating on the food?
No, ideally, we should be allowing that food to be digested properly. And, it's interesting. For a while, our TV broke. There's a little story. Our TV broke, and we thought we'd rush out and get another TV. So for about a year and a half, we didn't have a TV. So we'd sit down together, my wife and myself, at the table, and we'd have a conversation together. So that was interesting to see how you can interchange in that respect. So now we have a TV back, and times we'll watch it while we're eating, but to be careful, again, we'll say a prayer before, or at least during the time we're eating, so to make sure that, we're in a right physiological state in order to digest that food.
Mm-hmm.
So there's good points there.
Talk about that physiological state, because you said, I think, sympathetic, and
yes.
Why don't you explain it?
Okay. Well, again, there's a balance with our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, and for some of us don't know, there's two parts, a parasympathetic and a sympathetic. The sympathetic part of our nervous system speeds the body up, the parasympathetic slows the body down, and we want to find a right balance with that. But when we eat, we want to be in a parasympathetic mode, because that's where digestion is optimized. So with HeartMath, we talk about breathing in slow and then breathing out slower than breathing in. And that helps to activate our parasympathetic system. So if you're not into saying a prayer or a blessing before you eat, to breathe at least in that way, breathing in slow and then out slower.
Got it. So standing at the counter while you're feeding your kids at the table and you eating in between is not really a great idea.
It's not ideal.
Not ideal.
No, it's not.
So, yeah. You've mentioned HeartMath a few times. I'm sure some people know what that is, but I think a lot of people don't know what is that.
Gotcha. HeartMath's a great system of helping people address the stress in their lives, but along with that, helping to optimize their basically functioning as a human being. So HeartMath was developed by Dr. Childra in the, you can say early 1990s, HeartMath Institute was established, but he was doing his work all before that. And Dr. Childra was actually in the South, and he was a Southern Christian. And he recognized he was studying, reading the Bible, praying, but he realized he wasn't making the sense of communion with God that he thought he should. And then he started to explore ingeniously of what it would take in that respect. And out of that thinking, HeartMath developed. And HeartMath basically helps us getting to that balance of parasympathetic, sympathetic, but a state of well-being where you actually feel a sense of well-being. And right now there's sensors, what's called an HRV sensor, which is a heart rate variability sensor that you would connect to your ear. And you can actually see if you're in a state of that autonomic nervous system balance. So it gives you a sensing whether you're actually doing what you intend to do, especially, for folks who might pray there or want to find balance. You can actually see if you're actually in a physiological nervous system state of balance by using the HRV sensor.
So is this kind of like, we're not going to all be in the office with this thing on our ear every day. Mm-hmm. So is this something that we can practice at home, or do you have to have a practitioner?
There's the HeartMath Institute's site, there's helpful information there, but I also have a stress mastering course that goes into not just HeartMath, but goes into nutrition, goes into setting the stage with HeartMath, and ultimately it's about our own innate expression coming out into expression, basically our innate potential being actualized into expression. So along with that, tell me again what you want me to answer in that respect.
Oh, I was just wondering, is it something where you have to go see a practitioner for HeartMath, or is there things you do at home?
Okay. You can go to a practitioner like myself or touch in with the HeartMath Institute there. And then basically with my patients, I teach them how to use the sensor. Basically, when every person comes in and I have them lie on the table, I actually put the HRV sensor on them while I'm taking care of them to see if I'm actually a change in their nervous system. So I introduce HeartMath to all my patients, and the patients who pick up on it, they get sensors from themselves and they do it at home. Okay. And a big thing with doing HeartMath though, if you do it in the morning, you get yourself into a state of coherence, it sets the tone for the day. Mm-hmm. So it sets the tonal quality for the day as you have a sensing of what it feels like to be in coherence. Does that make sense? And we use the term coherence.
Yes. So you are learning how to monitor yourself.
Yes, and especially in the morning, I find very helpful. And just go along, coherence basically is a state of physiological balance that translates in terms of a sense of well-being, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely makes sense, because how your day starts out a lot of times sets the tone for the whole day.
That's right. And then when things come up that are challenging, to actually do a HeartMath process, you may not have the sensor on you, but to do the HeartMath process where you're breathing in slow, you're breathing out slower, you're breathing through your heart. Okay, that allows something to reset when you feel like you're being challenged with something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the course that you're gonna, so when is this course coming up?
Okay, actually my group course coming up is starting May 13th, and it's on the subject of self-discipline. Explore, discover your greater self-discipline. So I realized after 35 years of practicing, it's the choices we make, like you were saying about eating in a right state there. Mm-hmm. Okay, it takes self-discipline. So that course will be coming up, and actually considering it as a group will help each of us be held accountable more, so that some of those patterns that we know we need to work on can be more ingrained and we can more act out of them. I also have a self-study course that I've been inviting folks to right now, that if they engage in the self-study, they can engage in the group course without paying a fee for that. But when our podcast comes out, this YouTube video, basically you'll be encouraged to engage with the group course.
Yeah. So yeah, that is so true. I mean, we can do things on our own, but it's so much better to have accountability, whether it be with a coach or a mentor, your doctor, or a group of people who have the same goals in mind. It's just so much easier.
Right, Kim, like James Masco is a friend of mine, and he's big now with emphasizing that transformation happens in community. Mm-hmm. Transformation happens when we're engaged together in a similar direction.
That is so true. It just reminds me when we're talking about nutrition. If everyone in your house is eating healthy, then you go to the pantry and there's healthy things there. But when you have 2 people eating healthy and 3 people eating chips, man, it's really hard when you're eating healthy to go in there and just see those Cheetos sitting there.
Right.
It's so much easier when everybody's kind of doing the same thing and together with the same, thoughts and same way of doing and being.
Yes, right, Kim. Absolutely. Yeah.
So talk about stress and the effects of stress. I mean, people talk about stress all the time. Oh, I'm so stressed. Oh, I'm so stressed. I mean, the other day I felt stressed and I felt like my heart and my lungs were tight. We actually have a physical reaction to stress, or sometimes emotional. So talk about stress and how can we, I mean, life is full of stress, right? There's always going to be some stress there. That's part of life. But how can we actually manage it and be aware of it and be able to actually overcome it when we need to?
Actually, one of my courses that I've just done with a group and self-study that's available now is Transforming Self-Sabotage. Mm. And I developed a process before actually the vaccines came out, messenger RNA, where I have a process of messenger RNA, where you recognize each of us is a messenger of light. Mm-hmm. But when we recognize that we're not shining that light or our heart's been impacted, we recognize that, we neutralize that. And as we neutralize that, then we come back to the feeling of appreciation of the place that we provide, of the light we are providing to the world. So in my Transforming Self-Sabotage course there. It goes into that in more detail, which we can get into now if you want, but that's the process that I work with. When you recognize when you are being impacted.
And it sounds like the way you transform it is by focusing on why you're here. In other words, I'm here on this earth to do this. I mean, the reason I do this podcast is I think everybody on this earth has a reason for being here, and they need to find out what it is so they can be feeling fulfilled and they can be putting out their gift to the world, and everybody is profiting and feeling good because they are sharing why they're here.
So absolutely. That goes along with my self-discipline course. The number one factor for self-discipline is cultivating, exploring your sense of being, of why, your purpose. That's the number one factor, the leverage point for you to make the right choices. But that takes something. It's not just a thought. Another thing I like about HeartMath, it's not just thinking of being in a state of balance. Actually, it's feeling, actually accessing that feeling of the state of balance. So this coming week, I'll be talking to some health practitioners, and a mentor of mine would say, to young chiropractors, he said, you're going to meet challenges in your career, and it's going to take fire. It's going to take the fire of your sense of purpose to meet those challenges and to move through those challenges. So I'm going to be emphasizing that with the practitioners I'm going to be talking with, but for each of us to cultivate that sense of fire, that sense of why. And to me, it comes back to each of us is a specific light that is to come into the world. But it's not only our light. Our light needs to blend with other lights where there's an integration of each other. There's a life integration, which leads us to a sense of oneness, a sense of wholeness.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. And I just love it when everyone's inclusive, everyone's included. With everything happening right now and people are dividing, it seems, and all sorts of reasons for dividing. It's like, but we're just all people and we're all love and we're all supposed to be together, blending, as you said, our lights. We're all supposed to be blending our lights, shining our light as brightly as we can, and then just blending our light. So when you're working with people in group, let's say in your courses, or if you're, speaking with people, how do you talk to them as far as like, how do we just really come together and take away those, everybody's got judgments. How do we take away those judgments and just be all one?
Well, for one, recognizing what they're doing to ourselves when we do that. So I use the, recognizing when your heart has shrunk, when you start to judge or accuse or blame others, to recognize that for yourself. And then I as a chiropractor, I recognize the first step there is to upright yourself. Breathe in, breathe out slow until you can come to the point of remembering what you truly love. As you do that, then you begin to neutralize, where you can see the things you need to let go of. You can actually see how you can forgive yourself for, you can say, the judgments we may have made, or we can actually see how we can forgive someone else who may be in that state. We take a larger view, which neutralizes, which allows for forgiveness, for perspective. And I call it, you come to the peace of understanding, where you understand larger why people may act the way they do, or why we may have acted the way we've done. And when we come to that piece of understanding, then we come back to the place that we're to provide. And when we're in place, we know we're in place. We know that we know.
Yeah. So when you were talking about my heart going too small, I'm thinking about the Grinch, that story of the green Grinch.
That's a good point. Yeah, I haven't thought about that.
Way too small. And he was so, judging and upset with these people who were so happy. And then when he went to the realization that, oh, I can be included, I can be a part of this, and I can be happy, then his heart grows.
Actually, that's a
What do you
great
say?
point.
Two sizes that day or whatever.
Kim, I'll have to use that in my future talks there, to have that in my back pocket to bring that out, because that's exactly right. I haven't thought about that before, but
Well, yeah. I mean, there's the book, but then if you think about the movie with the Jim Carrey one, where he's got bugs in his teeth and he's eating disgusting things. Talk about nutrition. He's eating disgusting things from, 10 years ago, whatever, rust or whatever. Think about when your heart is small, you're kind of like the Grinch. All, you don't
actually,
realize it, but you're not looking good to other people or
that's
to
right.
yourself. And
That's
then
right.
when you're in love and open up your heart, you all healthy and fluffy.
Yeah. And it's something you should bring up nutrition too, because the foods we eat could cause us to contract too. So that's something to take note of.
Why don't you talk more about that?
Well, again, it goes back to our attitude when we're eating something. We may like to eat ice cream, or actually non-dairy ice cream sometimes, foods like that. But to eat it with joy is important. But if you're eating something you think you shouldn't be eating and you're not enjoying it, it causes a conflict consciously and subconsciously, which can cause things to collapse down. But overall, if you're eating more refined carbohydrates than good, solid nutrition food, then physiologically that's going to dampen you down too.
Exactly. So if we're stealing the cookie from the cookie jar and we're feeling guilty, that is going to make us feel
It's
sick or
double.
feel bad.
Yeah, it's double. It's a double shrinkage, as talking about the Grinch.
Got it. What about I know this happened to me, and I don't know if it happened to other people, but my mom would cook dinner, and there would a little bit of everything's put on my plate, and I'd see those peas. I hate those little green peas. I hate them. I hate them. But my mom would say you have to eat your peas if you want to get up from the table or if you want to
Uh-huh.
go play. What happens when parents say you got to eat that to kids?
And that's something to explore. Actually, I happen to love peas. Actually, my own experience, my mother never said you got to eat this, because I had a great appetite. So it might be a little hard for me to relate to that one. And since we don't have children, but we do have a cat now, and the cat doesn't want to eat certain food we put out for her. So I guess you find creative ways, a mom or dad, the parents find creative ways of making the food attractive.
Mm-hmm. Definitely have to do that or put it in something.
Yeah.
So
Actually, right.
if you put it in like a meat pie, I'd eat it,
Yeah.
but just sitting there on the plate, no.
Right. Actually, with just an analogy with our cat, we notice if we pet our cat while she's eating, she'll eat on our plate. So it's almost to think about with a child, if we may not pet our child, but actually just give them, loving attention, could help in the process.
Mm-hmm.
To me, everything starts in an emotional connection field. So if a mom or dad is getting irritated, that's only going to cause a stir in the energetic environment, which doesn't allow for things to be received.
Right. Yeah. And if everybody's upset, they're not going to digest their food very well. So, yeah. So, what other things can we do to just get back into homeostasis, get back into balance, not feel so stressed, eat well? Are there certain foods that we just totally should not ever eat?
To me, as a certified gluten practitioner, I don't eat any gluten, because we recognize for everybody, and there's science behind this, for all of us who eat gluten, it causes an inflammation reaction in every single person. For some people, it causes more of a reaction. So one thing I advise my patients with, not everybody follows through, is to be gluten-free. It's not just a fad. So that's one thing. But then, the refined carbohydrates there, things with canola oil in it, cottonseed oil, the processed foods like that.
Mhm.
If you're going to eat a chip, we like the baked chips or the grain-free chips of the Siete family there, things like that. So finding healthier alternatives to things that are, more processed.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize that everyone reacts to gluten.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
you go into the store and there's a whole row of different kinds of bread and they all got gluten in them.
Yeah. And now gluten, because of that, it's the number one consumed product that actually has been implicated with autoimmunity. So things like eventual dementia, Alzheimer's, Crohn's disease, all kinds of autoimmune conditions are stem from number one factor in the environment is gluten consumption. Now, there's other things too, but gluten has been targeted like that. The work that Dr. O'Brien has set out, and I'm part of his network, has pronounced that. And, in terms of wanting to keep our brain healthy for the long term, is to lay off the gluten.
Oh, you just gave me an aha moment there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all about the brain health because I'm a behavioral optometrist, so I'm doing vision and brain work, and I definitely want people's brains working well.
That's right.
And it's really scary to be diagnosed with dementia. I just had a patient last week. He came in, he was actually doing quite well because they had him on all sorts of medicines, but he said, yeah, I was diagnosed with dementia and I'm doing all these things from my brain to help me. And that's just frightening for anyone to think about that. And Crohn's disease is no better. Crohn's disease, where you basically you can't even empty your body of the toxins because there's a problem there, and it's painful. It is just a terrible thought. So
Right. Yeah,
gluten can cause a lot of those things.
it can. Your gut, your brain, joint problems, it can set
So
the stage for your body to begin to attack itself.
So let's talk about gut problems. And you talked about in your bio about uh, was it irritable bowel syndrome,
Inflammatory bowel
inflammatory
disease.
bowel disease, and yeah, talk about the gut and those kind of diseases.
You know, reason why I've gotten into learning more about that because of my own personal experience.
Mm,
But, the big factor again is the inability for us to address the stress in our life in a healthy way. I'd say that's the central trigger. Then, along with dietary factors, you can say gluten, other factors too that a person may be sensitive to.
mhm.
So it's really, finding what it takes. And actually, there's assessments to see if you actually are gluten sensitive or wheat sensitive. There's a test called a NeuroZoomer by Vibrant Labs there that can test to see if you're generating antibodies now that are tearing down brain tissue. So before a person may develop dementia, you can actually see if they're in line for that kind of condition to develop by looking at predictive antibodies.
Wow. And when you're talking about the brain, does that affect things like Parkinson's disease?
Absolutely. All like those are autoimmune conditions
Any of
there.
them?
Yeah. So like really working your gut, really helping your gut is pretty central. That's where vitamin D comes in. There's other products to support the intestinal lining. Basically, it starts from intestinal permeability, which another name for that is leaky gut.
Mhm.
So you want to really make sure you want to check your vitamin D levels because that has a lot to do with that. You may want to be tested. Now, sometimes I advise folks to go gluten-free, but sometimes when you're tested and it's in your face that you are gluten sensitive or wheat sensitive, when it's in your face like that, you're more apt to make the choices. So that's where the testing can be helpful.
That does make total sense. So I know some people, when you tell them, okay, you need to go gluten free, they think, but where's the spice of life? Where's the happy, no birthday cakes, no, as a person doing gluten free, what are some of your favorite snacks or things that are healthy or good for your gut, but you feel like it's a treat?
There's for everything that's gluten, it has gluten in it, there's a healthier alternative. The thing is, you have to be careful of eating too many gluten-free products too, because they can be high in sugar and carbohydrates. So you can enjoy them, but still find your balances with them. So yeah, I'd answer in that respect. I had something else in mind, but can you ask me again another part of that question?
Yeah. So, what are your favorite snacks that you eat that make you feel like, oh, this is like my ice cream, or this is my cake,
Okay.
or this is a
Okay.
thing that when I want to have something special, like even celebrate something, you're gonna have a party, you want special foods. What would it
Yeah.
be?
Actually, my next door neighbor is a great cook, baker, and for my birthday, actually now for our gatherings, she makes gluten-free carrot cakes,
Mmm.
and it's like the best in the world there. So I always applaud her for that. But again, there's gluten-free flours you can use. Ice cream. There's most ice, or we like the non-dairy ice creams, and they're pretty much gluten-free. The grain-free, chips
Mm-hmm.
by the Siete family there, we like there. So, there's things, but you got to find your balances with those too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of paleo products too are gluten free.
Okay. So if I'm a snacker, let's say I like to snack throughout the day, but I don't want to, I don't want to eat junk food.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to eat my regular, protein based diet for breakfast or lunch. But, in between breakfast and lunch, I want a snack. What are some of the healthiest snacks we can go for?
Ideally, having a scoop of, say, almond butter. I sometimes
I don't
mix
even know
in
what that is. What is that?
almond butter.
Oh,
Yeah,
almond butter. Almond
yeah,
butter. Okay.
yeah. Instead of peanut butter, almond butter.
Almond butter. Okay.
Yeah, and then sometimes I'll have a scoop of a nut butter with coconut oil
Uh-huh.
to help balance my blood sugar. And then I find, bars, nutritional bars that are gluten free,
Mm-hmm.
paleo based, so there's things like that I use mid afternoon. Those are the times that I crave things like that.
Okay. So why eat the almond butter as opposed to just eating the almonds, or does it matter?
It depends. Almond butter is to me, it's quick to chew and swallow. You
Hmm.
know,
So,
so
oh,
it's a
it's
quick
just a
little,
preference. It's
it's
just a
a quick
preference.
little, just a preference. But nuts are great too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That
Some
sounds
people
good.
like some people like hummus, mid afternoon, that type of thing with carrot sticks or
Hmm. That sounds good because I know I usually keep some kind of nuts in my car in case I'm hungry, but
sure,
I
yeah.
would not keep a jar of almond butter in my car, especially in the hot summers of Georgia.
Actually, at times when I go to the river for a walk, I'll bring snacks, but the snacks I bring are basically chewable supplements, like a chewable vitamin C, a chewable CoQ10, a chewable zinc tablets. So that's kind of like if I get a little hungry while I'm walking there, I'll have a chewable supplement.
Wow, that's really, I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah,
That is really interesting.
yeah.
So, um, just to change gears a little bit here, throughout your life, any aha moments or times of realization where you said, "Oh, wow, never thought about that before." It was something new for you.
Uh-huh. I have two moments that come to mind. One, when I was 23, I was the community health educator of West Orange. I was invited to a talk on stress. All I knew was the topic. I don't know who was speaking. What was the Orange health educator just that day said, you might be interested in this talk. So at that time, I was in my early 20s. I was checking out anything and everything, especially being the community health educator and the things I was teaching. So all I knew the talk was on stress. So the talk was in Mountain Lakes, New Jersey, and I got there a little late, and I sat in the back row, and like 10 minutes into the talk, I started looking at this person who looked like anybody's uncle, And he was saying things I always knew in my heart, but no one actually said. The things that I sensed that were true. So I was so enamored with his presentation, I had to go up to him afterwards. I said, that's expression. Because I was, for some reason during that day, I was thinking about expressing yourself. So he said to me, it's got to be released. You know, the expressions of life has to be released. And that's the fundamental part of his talk was that we have a heart, mind, and body that needs to be responsive to the life that's looking to animate through us rather than being reactive to the outer environment. And he was a chiropractor. His name was Dr. Bill Bain. I recognized afterwards, I found out he was a chiropractor as my thoughts were to go to chiropractic school. And as I was moving in that direction, and I realized that Bill was a chiropractor in his time, I was moving in the right direction because I wanted to provide for my world like he did for me that evening in terms of looking to articulate things we all know in our heart, but no one actually says. But I think the times now, I think more of us are affirming what's really true in our hearts and are looking to connect in that way.
Beautiful. Thank you. And what gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
You know, that's where my teaching comes in, where I love coming to the point in a presentation where there's a sense of communion with the audience. There's a sense of oneness. And to me, that's been the most fulfilling thing in my life.
Beautiful. So if people wanted to connect with you, either, physically as a patient, if they live in Atlanta or in the area, how do they find you? Are you on the web? And then just kind of go over what services you're offering now and what, classes coming up, just so we have a summary of everything.
Sure. Okay. My website is drsteveventola.com. And it outlines where my office is off of Claremont Road here in Atlanta there. So I see folks one-to-one, and then I'm developing a group education, a whole health education platform. So on my website, there's a page of my whole health courses. And some of the courses I've done, actually 3 of the courses I've done group sessions, actually the 3rd one coming up now. So you can study on your own, or you can participate in the group sessions that I schedule periodically during the year.
Right, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ventola, for being on the podcast today and for, just pursuing your dream of, healthier people and nutrition and because we all benefit from your knowledge. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Okay.
Yeah. So I have one last question before we finish.
Sure.
What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Okay, that goes back to another mentor of mine, Martin Cecil, Exeter, where he said, you know what you express. That if you want to know a sense of peace or a sense of joy, that needs to emanate through us. So this might be a little something to realize how that works there. That's where HeartMath comes in, where, again, getting into coherence, you recognize more of actually what you're experiencing, and what you experience basically emanates out. So if we're looking to have a life experience, as my mentor Bill Bain would say, we need to express life. And certain qualities we may have more of an affinity for, like some of us might want to express joy or no joy. So we need to express that joy or a sense of peace or a sense of what, again, goes back to your fire. What are we about individually that we can share with others in a sense of oneness, integrated life way.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ventola.
Yeah, my pleasure, Kim. It's good. It's great to share with you.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.